So at this moment, I've opened up the two routers. One is going to serve as a master, and the other one is going to serve as a client or a station trying to connect to a VLAN. So as you can see, I've opened up the first router, which will be my server, and I'm going to give it a unique VLAN name. Okay, so as you can see, I've opened the VLAN interface on the first router, and I've assigned a VLAN ID of 100 to it, and I've assigned a particular port. Okay, and you need to click on the use service tag when you are configuring a VLAN to be connected to a switch or another router. If you are connecting it to a PC, then you can decide to not check the use tag service. And so now is the point for us to configure an IP address on this VLAN. Okay, so this is the IP address. This is the network I'm configuring on the VLAN. So I've chosen the VLAN we just configured. Okay, so that's my first VLAN. We can actually create more VLANs on the same interface. Okay, so this is the DHCP mode. Okay, great. So I need to configure a DHCP server for this VLAN I created in the first router. So as you can see, this is the range I'm offering the VLAN. So I'm done configuring the VLAN on the first router. Now I'm on the second router. Okay, so I can actually create more VLANs on the same interface. I mean more VLANs going through the same port. Okay, which is obviously port 10. That is the one I selected. So I'm creating the second VLAN. I've created it, and then I've assigned a unique ID. If you are familiar with VLANs, there is one thing that goes with it, which is the VLAN ID. Without a VLAN ID, your configuration will not be successful. And so I'm creating the third VLAN. Okay, and assign a unique VLAN ID to it, and then selected the same interface, which is port 10. So I'm done creating this VLAN. Now I need to create DHCP for the rest of the VLAN I created. Okay, I'm creating a fourth VLAN. And assign it a unique VLAN ID, and then choose the ETA10 as the interface. Okay, so the thing with VLAN simply means virtual local area network, and you can create these VLANs on one interface, several of them. The only thing that can differentiate between them are the VLAN IDs. So now I've gotten to the second router. I'm creating my VLAN Okay, so I've created my VLAN, and remember the ID, the first VLAN ID we created in the master, that's the router on my left. We assigned VLAN ID 100 to it, and so the same thing I've done here, and I'm going to use this VLAN interface for the DHCP client. Okay, so as you can see, I'm doing the same things I created in the first router. So this is our second VLAN that I'm creating in the second router, the client router. I'll do this and assign the same VLAN ID in the master router. And then don't forget the use service tag. Apply and OK. So it's left with 2 more VLANs to be created. So as you can see, on the second router, I selected Ether 1 as the interface because that is the means by which I'm going to connect to the VLANs I created in the master router. Something like internet coming through it. You specify the ID according to the configuration we did in the first router, and then you select the interface. Apply and OK. So now we have created the 4 VLAN IDs. The next thing for us to do is to create or configure our DHCP client. Yes. So this is the DHCP client. If you notice, it has given us a dynamic DHCP client, but that's not what we want. We want to do it statically or manually. And so if I should choose the first one, it's going to automatically give me a DHCP IP address. So you see, I got an IP address from the first VLAN we created in the master router. So that is the network I got. If I should change it to the other ones, so you see, I need to create DHCP server for all the other 4 VLANs, for the other VLANs I created in the first router, before I can proceed and configure a DHCP client in the second router for these IPs to appear on the second router. So as you can see, I'm configuring DHCP servers, networks, and then configure a DHCP server for these VLANs. So this is what I'm currently doing. Okay, I think I'm done configuring the DHCP. Okay, I think it's left with the last one. Okay, so now I'm done with it. I need to configure the DHCP server for this, and then that will be it. Okay, so I'm done configuring the DHCP server on the first router. All are configured on the VLANs I created. Okay, so these are the corresponding IP addresses and their DHCP servers. So now next I need to move to the next router and then configure my DHCP clients for these various VLANs I created. Okay. So as you can see, yeah, I think I've been logged out from this part. It's simply because I'm connected to a different network now. So I did some configurations on the master router, so it's kind of preventing me from connecting back to it. And so if you notice, if I change any of these VLANs, it's able to give me a unique IP address from the master router. Okay, so on the master router or on the server, you remember we created several VLANs and we used the port 10 as the interface. On this second router, we are using port 1 as the means of bringing in this VLAN into this network. And so as you can see, I have internet, I can browse. If I should change it, it will still work and it will give me a unique IP address. Okay. So basically these are the forms and ways you can actually play with VLAN. Okay, this is how you can actually deal with VLAN's configurations. So you see, because I took out the VLAN, you can actually configure a static IP onto this VLAN as well.